בדרך כלל יוצרים התנגדות. נכון? מישהו בא אליך ואומר, הנה בואו נשנה את העולם, אז יש תמיד אנשים שאומרים, רגע, not so fast, לא למהר, כאילו, תחשבו, אז הוא אומר ככה, במנות, כאילו, זה להציב מטרות, וכאילו במנות, לתת את זה לאנשים, וככה, לא להגיד למישהו שאתה הולך לבנות שכונה של 5,000 יחידות דיור בבת אחת, כי אז אנשים יתנגדו ויגידו, מה פתאום, השנה אנחנו נבנה 300. כאילו, בשנה הבאה תדברו על עוד 300. אז ככה, כאילו, לאט לאט. ואז עוד נקודה פשוט הוא אומר, אז איך בכלל, אוקיי, יש לך את החזון, אתה תעשה את זה בצעדים, אז איך באמת להביא איך אפשר להביא אנשים איתך? אז באמת דיבר על 3 דברים. הראשון זה בהחלט אימון, כי אנשים בסופו של דבר הולכים איתך כי הם מאמינים בך, יש לך יחסי אימון ביניכם. ועוד 2 דברים שבאמת צריך את הפאשן, את התשוקה למה שאתה עושה. כי זה תשוקה וגם התלהבות. כי עם 2 הדברים האלו, אם באמת יש לך אם אתה כבר קנית ובנית את אימון עם הבן אדם השני, ואז אתה עושה את מה שאתה עושה, כאילו, במה שאתה מאמין, באמת עם ההתלהבות והתשוקה, אז זה באמת מה שיביא אנשים ללכת איתך. אז זה רק נקודה אחת ככה בשבילנו לקחת לחיים. זהו, ביקשתי מאפרים ככה להגיד משהו, ואחר כך כל אחד שרוצה להגיד בזמן.
I'll speak in English. Is it בסדר?
again, it's good.
So I'll speak in English, just because it's probably the lowest common denominator.
Good.
Can you say that in Hebrew?
Lowest common denominator. And I didn't get that much notice, because I would have prepared a really long speech, so you guys are lucky. And I was thinking about Saba, and first of all, I really enjoyed thinking about it. It was just nice to kind of try and think and actually actively think about memories and what it means, and I really just enjoyed that, just sitting and thinking about him. And then I thought about, what does it mean that he's not with us anymore? And I think for all of us, I think this probably applies in this room, is that if we counted with the amount of time that Saba was in our lives, maybe besides Ima, it was probably not that much physical time. Maybe 2 weeks a year, you know, put it together the 18 years that I was alive, maybe 20-something years Benji was alive, doesn't add up to that much. But so the fact that he's not here now, what does that mean? And I think, I mean this in a positive sense, but it doesn't make any difference. Because my relationship with Saba wasn't necessarily the fact that I physically saw him or that I spoke to him every time. Saba was a part of my life when I was 18 and when I was 12, and now that I'm 24, as much as he always was. And he's always had an influence on me personally to a great extent. There's a story, I don't think Saba ever heard this story. I don't think I've ever told this story to anyone. But one year Saba and Safta came to Israel, and they brought me a set of rulers. You remember those set of rulers? There's no reason. Sargelim. Set sargelim. Now this set of rulers, I don't even know what it was, but it was so complex. It was like it had a ruler in a ruler, and like it had a little roller thing that you rolled. I had no idea. I was 8 at the time. I obviously had no idea what to make with this ruler, but it turned around. It was really cool, and Saba had given it to me. And the teacher, I took it to school, and I wasn't a terrible student. I wasn't a very good student either. But I remember I was playing with my ruler, and there was a substitute teacher who came to give this one-off class, and and the class was in chaos. And she decided to pick an easy target, and she said, "You're not paying attention." She took my ruler. I got so upset, and she said, "If you behave properly, you'll get it back at the end of the lesson." So I sat there, riveted the entire lesson, keeping my mouth shut, hoping to get back my ruler at the end of the class. And at some point, she had a fit of rage, and she started shouting, and she took the ruler and she banged it on the table.
Oh my God.
And it broke.
Wow.
I think she quit teaching after that. Because I had a fit. I was crying, and I wouldn't hear any of it. And I said it's irreplaceable, and it was irreplaceable. It didn't matter if she got me a new ruler, it was irrelevant, because Saba had given me the ruler. And I was thinking about that, and I read something that Rav Steinsaltz wrote. And he wrote about the word tichkum. Nitai probably read this. He wrote something. He said, "There's only Rav Steinsaltz can say this." He said, "I hate this word." Only Rav Steinsaltz can say that he hates a word in the dictionary, right? He hates the word tichkum. What's the word tichkum? It's taken from the English. It's kind of translates a new word. It's translated from maybe sophistication. That's probably the closest. Word we can find to it, but it doesn't exist in the Tanakh anywhere. It doesn't mean being smart. It doesn't mean being wise. It doesn't mean any of that. And the closest thing we can probably find in the Tanakh to tichkum, to sophistication, is in the second chapter of Bereshit, when we read about the snake. It says the snake was erom mikol chayat hasadeh, that he was conniving, or he was deceptive, and that's probably the closest meaning we can find to tichkum in the Bible. And there, what he did was he wasn't being smart, and he wasn't being sophisticated. He wasn't being brilliant. He was taking something, and he was kind of making it complex, and he was taking an issue. He said, if we read the text there, it says that he told the Chava asks him, he says to Chava, "Why don't you eat this apple?" And Chava says to him, "It's forbidden as asur." So he says, "Is it really asur? He gives her this other question, and he makes it complex. And suddenly, now that it's complex, it's not simple that it's forbidden anymore." And Rav Steinsaltz says, we do this with everything in our lives. We make things complex so that they're not simple anymore. And by making them complex, we therefore either don't need to deal with them, or they become something that either becomes mutar because it's too complex, it's not asur anymore, or becomes too complex that it's asur because we don't know if it's mutar anymore. And it's a layer of something that we've added that we think makes us smarter, we think it makes us more modern, but really it takes us back. And what we should try to do is go back to simple things. Simple things, which means to say to someone, "I love you," to say to someone, "I'm Jewish," to say to someone, "I believe in this," and to not have to explain it. And I was thinking about it. Do I believe in God? I believe in God. I can't explain why I believe in God. And there's a lot of things like this, and there's a lot of concepts like this that because we've made them complex, they're not simple anymore, and they're not straightforward to us. And I was thinking that Saba was very simple, and I took this in two muvanim, in two meanings, and it works much better in Hebrew. He was very pashut, and I mean that in two ways. One is that he had a way to lefashet. To lefashet means to simplify. And Saba was able, at the age of 8, and at the age of 20, and at any age you were, to give you a view of something that was at your level. He could take you to a helicopter and you could see it take off, or he could explain to you how the inner mechanics worked. And he definitely knew how it worked. And he knew all these things. And he could give different people a different view on the same thing. It was at their level. And I think the second thing, in the simple sense, was that some things were very simple to him. Some things there was no need to overcomplicate things. Family, being Jewish, belief, helping other people. These things weren't complicated to Saba. These things were simple. He didn't see any. I don't think. Maybe I'm sure he thought about them, and I'm sure he spent his whole life dealing with them. But they were things that were straightforward and they were obvious to him. And I was thinking about every family occasion we had, how Saba would stand up and talk about the value of family. And he had this ability to tell us things that maybe were so simple they didn't need to be said, but were actually so important to remind ourselves and to be connected to. And I think that those are the two things that for me were the simplicity, also being able to simplify for people, and also being able to keep things simple and to keep things down to the basics and connect to each other and to connect to these simple emotions. And where they had a deep meaning, but they were simple emotions that he had. I think that those are the main things I wanted to say. And I think I think one of the things we can all take for ourselves is also the kavod that he had and the attitude that he had to every person, to simplify things, to talk to people the way they need to be spoken to, and to understand that different people have a different need to be spoken to in a different way and can understand things in a different way, and also to remember that keeping things simple is actually the deepest thing you can do is to say to someone I love you, and to say I'm Jewish, I'm connected, I believe in this is something I do, and to even not have to explain yourself, but just to feel it and to be connected to it, and to actually say it, because it's not so obvious to everyone around us.
תצלמי אותי ואת אמיתי.
Everything.
Well done. If you want to see the recap,
שמצלם אותו.
What? Do we have it? Brian, we need to see the with Kel Malay Rachamim.